All right, first day of the year, we have yet another Harlan Coben story come to life on Netflix. This is Missing You, a show that definitely keeps you on your toes, but is it as good as his other shows?
Yes.
11 years ago, Detective Kat Donovan's fiancé Josh, the love of her life, disappeared, and she's never heard from him since. Now, swiping profiles on a dating app, she suddenly sees his face and her world explodes all over again. Josh's reappearance will force her to dive back into the mystery surrounding her father's murder and uncover long-buried secrets from her past. I mean, a classic mystery-type feel to this synopsis, and the first episode alone, not diving in yet to my criticisms of this episode, because I have a few. There are so many moments where you're like, yeah, it does feel like other Harlan Coben stories. Now, I've never read any of the novels, but I've seen the shows, right? Series like The Stranger and Safe, The Innocent. Stay close, hold tight, fool me once. You're probably confused if you've never watched those series. I have, and for the most part, they're good. There have been a few that fell short of my expectations, but something like The Stranger, I was a huge fan of that year. I think it was one of my favorite shows of the year. So you're always expecting a Harlan Coben story or Harlan Coben mystery to have those cliches that we see almost every time, which does start to point you in the direction, especially with this show, as to where they are going with it. But it's going to keep you on your toes. And if this show does anything other than deliver a really nice lead performance, I think Rosalind Eliezer does a nice job as Kat Donovan. I just started watching Slow Horses. That's right, I'm behind. She's really good in that show. And she's really good here. Kat Donovan gets it done, right? She's known as the detective around town, but can she be the detective in this story where there are a couple of things thrown at her at once, right? You have the overall arc of what we're going through, and then the personal arc, what she's trying to figure out, what she is involved in and has a much deeper emotional connection to. Now, all of that said about her character, which again is interesting because I think she does a nice job, and she's involved in pretty much every plot thread of this show, I thought her character was at times poorly written. Now, I'm not talking overall, but there were occasions where the dialogue just doesn't match up to a much more serious tone within what we are dealing with, right? The tone of the show can be serious, yet the dialogue doesn't always match that. She will say things and do things that almost feel satirical at points, right? In the first episode alone, there are a couple of lines of dialogue. She's thrown into this situation in the beginning in this kitchen, and she's trying to talk somebody down, but what she was saying just felt a little too on the nose for me, a little too conventional for a show that ultimately has some interesting elements and moments. But I'm watching it going, I don't know if I can buy into this because I don't know if the dialogue is working. And I don't know if that's the case for the book. Many book readers might be getting on to me right now because they just didn't do it in this show how they did it in the original novel. But I, for one, I wasn't on board. And that first episode is so cliche-ridden, not having 8 to 12 episodes to slowly get us on board, allow us to get to know these characters. No, you have to throw us in, I understand that, but they're really throwing us in, and I'm not really buying what they're presenting on screen other than her doing a nice job. But you also have, as you do in any Harlan Coben show, Richard Armitage, who plays Ellis, and Ellis was a very conventional character, and there were so many points throughout this very limited series where I'm like, I wish the character-driven crime drama allowed us to spend a little more time with these characters other than Kat, other than, who we spend the majority of the series with, which is completely understandable. I get it. And again, she delivers a nice performance. But there were so many times where I'm like, man, we could have learned more about this and maybe extended that to a point. It's so funny because I feel as if this show could have either been 3 episodes longer to give us more time and to not feel like we're bouncing all over the place with the characters and really the tone, because the tone is up and down throughout this entire series. Or it could have been 2 hours. We could have focused up more this human trafficking case along with this more personal story, which I don't want to talk about in detail, in depth right now, although you get to learn a lot about that in the first episode. That line where they come up to her and they're like, this man has cancer. I'm just like, that's okay. trying to tiptoe around spoilers, I just didn't think the dialogue was very good. And everything intertwines. I think the two mysteries intersect to a degree to where they become more exciting. And again, I want to stand on the basis of you are constantly on your toes with this show. The twists and turns are prevalent and prominent, but that doesn't always make something good or cohesive. And I just didn't feel that cohesion through and through, but really with everything here, with the tone, with the dialogue, with the stories that do intertwine, but inevitably I thought there was one little subplot, one minor subplot that they try to focus on and pay attention to that had no business taking up as much time as it did. I'm sitting here going, what are you doing? You wasted so much time, and that's when I come back to, wow, it could have been a 2-hour movie because if we would have focused up, we could have made something great, or just gave us more with some of these characters. Pick a lane, they picked neither. They went right down the middle of the interstate. Now, I do want to say this. If you've never seen one of these Harlan Coben shows, I think this series is going to work for you more than it did me. I've just seen so many that start to run together. And again, I like them for the most part, but this one kind of rides those cliches a bit too hard, and it tries its best to keep you on your toes like every 5 minutes, and that honestly really hurts the pacing of the show. And I rolled my eyes so many times with the dialogue. It's a really hard series to recommend unless you've never seen anything like it. But if you've seen these shows before, you've seen this one. You'll even start to kind of figure it out as you go, and that was the case for me. Not everything was predictable, absolutely not. But there is a point where you have to scale back and give us some time with the characters. Develop these interpersonal relationships. Allow us to feel some of the chemistry between those that are so important in Kat's life especially. And I just felt this series didn't do that. So we're starting the year off. If you thought Scrooge left because Christmas is over, well, he didn't, because that's apparently me this year. Thank you so much for watching this review. Are you watching Missing You on Netflix? If you enjoyed it, let me know why down below. Appreciate you nonetheless. And drop that like if you want to see more Netflix reviews this year than you saw last year. Missing You is rarely dull, delivering one twist after another, but nothing feels cohesive. The dialogue and tone are all over the place to an almost satirical degree. That's how kind of over the top this series gets, but it's not without some highlights that I think a lot of people will kind of latch on to and ride until the very end. Also, were you satisfied with the conclusion? That's a question I'm curious to see how you answer. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next review. Happy New Year! It's another year.